Good morning, good morning. It is Friday, 7:17 a.m., October 21st. Here doing my pre-session analysis and trade ideas for today's New York session. So starting with the economic calendar, looking overnight, we had some data for the GBP in the UK economy showing a extreme disappointment in the retail sales. So we're already forecasting a negative year over year, month over month for core and regular retail sales. But across the board, just disappointed, and by a lot. Basically over 2% below expectations and below previous. Forecasted negative 0.3% month over month. Hit 5 times that, negative 1.5%. So it's terrible, terrible data. Same thing for retail sales. Almost triple as bad as they expected. And almost full 2 percentage points below forecast, negative 6.9% year over year. So that is a very significant drop in retail sales, showing the consumer is feeling the heat of the global recession, and the UK is not very good right now. So we have some more core retail sales for Canada coming out about 8:30, as well as manufacturing, new housing price index, regular retail sales, and wholesale sales month over month. Now, this Canadian data is going to be interesting to see. The global economy is to see if Canada's affected. As bad as the UK, a little bit better. We're gonna gauge the global economy by knowing two major economies, consumer and how they're reacting to the global recession that is underway. However, I'm not expecting a huge impact on the markets, as it is only the Canadian economy, and it's not as major. It doesn't have as major implications on central bank policy, which is the major mover of markets today. And so at 9:10, we also have some FOMC member Williams. Just going to be monitoring the newsroom to see if they're maintaining the same rhetoric that they've just been repeating line after line. So that's pretty much it. So it's a light day for data. Mostly for USD, there's no data, just some Fed speakers. So that's it. Starting now on the charts, looking at the investor sentiment, looking at US 500 and the volatility index. So we see that on the US 500 stock market index, from these lows, we had buyers step in and sellers liquidate their positions, taking profit. And we started a little bit of a pullback structure here, creating a new high, higher low, and then buyers printing new higher highs. But we just came to visit previous sell side liquidity where sellers printed these new lows, right? And from here, we've actually come down and softened, tried creating a higher low here, but the buyers are exhausting and actually started creating a lower high, rejecting this key 4-hour break of structure level, and made a new lower low here. Now, this is not enough for me to say that, the bears are back in play, but it is significant to note that the buyers have slowed down, let's say. They have slowed down, but we can still have, if we fail to break this level here, continuations to the upside. So as long as we stay above this level, we may end up seeing further pullbacks or range for the rest of the week, as it is Friday, and we may end up closing at this level. However, if we do see some continued sell-off and seller strength breaking past this key level, which is this previous structure level, and also a key weekly level as well. If we break below this level, I could see some continued weakness to the next zone here around 35.80. right? So if we have some continued weakness like this, well, that's going to be good for the overall sentiment that we're looking at, as the stock market has been bearish for some time, since December, since the beginning of the year, right? So far I'm going to state that we are weaker on US 500 and the stock market. However, on the VIX here, we don't have a spike. So we're actually continuing this weakness on the VIX here, which is showing that there isn't much panic selling going on. So this is not a very significant break to the downside, since the volatility index is basically measuring panic in the market, right? When we got a lot of panic and we're moving to the upside here, well, now we have some more aggressive selling on stock markets like this. So this is the correlation here, right? And as we enter somewhat of a weaker pullback here on the VIX, as we're slowly moving back to the downside, showing less panic, less short selling, less aggressive liquidation in the stock markets, well, we're seeing this pullback in the same fashion. However, this current new low, lower high, and new lower low has not been correlated with the VIX creating a higher high and higher low and higher high. No, actually, we're continuing the series of lower lows, lower highs. So this may be an indication that this bottom here is not a start of a new continuation of the sellers. It may just be a price grab at the significant level 36.40 around, for buyers to step back in and for the VIX to soften again towards 28.8. So it's a little bit of a mixed sentiment here. However, on the US dollar, we do see that the buyers are back in play, as in previous market updates I mentioned, from this now bullish sequence of events from the retest of the 110 demand zone. We did create a high, higher low, and new impulse of higher high, retesting previous levels of sell side liquidity right here that moved us into these new lows intraday, right? Since then, we've just been stuck in this range. Even when we dip to the downside, we come right back in the range. Then we dip to the downside again, but only retesting these previous structure levels created some sort of support here by the buyers, and we've now come back and created a high, a higher low, and a new higher high. So we're showing some potential bullish structure in play here, but again, we're right at the same liquidity level that sellers were taking, sellers were coming in. So in order for me to validate at this point that the dollar is going to continue its strength, I need to break back above the top of this zone here, because we see that we've never had candle closures. Even when we dipped back above over here, we never closed above this zone. Now at this point, we have a candle closure right within the zone, above previous highs. So this is a good sign, but it's not enough for me to say that we're going to break to the upside yet, as we can still fade out this move and end up closing the week still within this overall range, right? So that's one thing here. I'm going to set an alert to see if price breaks back above this rectangle, showing that buyers are printing new highs and the US dollar is strengthening throughout the session. I'm going to know, and I'm going to use that as confirmation within my trades. Now, going over to gold, let's see the trade ideas for today. So far, based on the higher time frames, there's no significant trade idea here, since we are we are overall looking for sells since we are bearish on the higher time frames with new lower lows printed, pullback retesting previous levels of sell side liquidity here, and now we've come all the way to retest the lows here. So at this point, it's not a very good time to sell down here because we're right at the lows. There's no real range to play here. Now at this point, we need to wait for a break of this level. Once we break this level and create a new lower low, well, now, similar to what happened here, when we break this level, now we have some confirmations to take a continuation sell. And once we break new lows again, we have a pullback, and now we have some confirmations to take a sell and a range to fill to the left. Here we don't have range to fill as we are right at previous higher time frame support levels, and we see that the current daily candle is rejecting that level right now. So now moving into the 4-hour time frame. So the 4-hour, we're seeing some exhaustion at this higher time frame low, but we are bearish as we have a new bearish breaker structure here. But yesterday was the nice retest sells as we retest this previous low and made it to the downside here. So very nice sells yesterday. However, today I would not call this a new breaker structure as we barely broke down and we have this previous level of support, and now we're back above these lows here. So valid sells if we come back up to retest this level and sort of have a double top here, and then we can have the sell off to the downside here. So based on the 4-hour time frame, we are bearish below this level. So I'm going to identify this zone as a potential sell, right? So potential sells from here, I'm going to include the entire wick. So from this zone, I am looking for potential sells on gold. And as mentioned on the daily time frame here, if we break below these previous lows here, then we could look for a retest sell like this, right? So for me, these are my 2 trade ideas for today. I'm not going to be looking for anything within this range, or I'm not going to be looking for a potential buy bounce from here and just gamble that this double bottom here is going to stand. You know, given that the US dollar is so strong, we may end up rejecting here, but this is not a trade that fits my plan. I'd rather wait for prime sell opportunities and take advantage of the stronger, the strong bearish trend that we're playing here. It's just not a great day to be selling gold right at these levels. We need more confirmations. So I'm going to set my alert for a retest of this 4-hour key level, 1640. And I'm also going to set an alert for a break below this level. Then I'll be looking for some trades. So there's no point of going down to the 1 hour because, just because, again, based on the 4-hour time frames here, it's not an ideal. I mean, I could look at this level right here is my 1-hour breaker structure that came to the downside here. I also have another level here, but now we're getting close to this higher time frame support level where this would technically, in other circumstances, be a potential an area that we can see some rejections from based on the 1 hour. But again, I don't like that we're slowing down on the 4-hour, that we barely created this new lower low, and we're seeing some consolidation here. From these lows, we're seeing a lot of messy price action. So coming back up here may end up just getting this further pullback, as this is not a favorable trade opportunity in my mind based on being at a higher time frame demand zone, and based on the 4-hour price action, and even the 1 hour as we look at it, seeming like we're exhausting for the time being. We did print a new lower low, which is good, but selling at this level based on current momentum, based on the current range, and being at a higher time frame demand is not favorable in my opinion. So I'm going to pass on this sell opportunity. I'm going to pass on this opportunity, and I'm going to wait for a better opportunity selling near these highs. Now we have a much better range to fill to the downside. Now if we're selling from these highs here, now we have a lot more to work with in terms of the range to fill, also having a potential stronger price action and reversal signs at these levels as well. That is favoring the sell side. This is more so favoring buy side, as we're just failing to break and grabbing some liquidity at new lows, at all-time lows here. Not all-time lows, but significant historical lows here, and slowing down the sell side. So for that reason, I'm going to stick to those higher time frame trade ideas here. However, I'm looking at GU here, and it's looking a lot better in terms of higher time frame range and trade ideas here. So looking at the daily time frame again, starting with a higher time frame analysis, playing this US dollar strength, we have been in a strong bearish trend, and on the daily time frame, we created this new lower high around 1.17 that made these aggressive new lower lows to the 1.04 area. From there, we had the aggressive pullback, but the pullback came to retest previous level of structure. Now, from this previous level of structure, we've seen a rejection and a higher low form. So the buyers did not give up right away. We had a higher low form, but now we retested the same sell side liquidity zone, and we're selling off again. So we're creating some sort of double top on the higher time frames, respecting this bearish structure. Now on the 4-hour, this is looking really interesting, as we're starting to create some very distinct bearish structure here with a series of new lower lows and lower highs, and most recently we broke past this previous low here at 117. And this is also significant because if we see across to the left here, this was a significant bullish structure. From this pullback, we created this lower high and then retested this this bullish structure. Buyers stepped back in and created this new higher high, creating a 4-hour bullish structure around this level. From then we continued on bullish, barely creating a new higher high, right? We had one candle close, and then we sort of stalled out here, showing some buyer exhaustion and sellers coming back into play here. And now, yesterday we had a nice retest of these levels, about 1.135 area, and we have a nice sell-off, and now finally we have a clean break below previous lows, below current structure, and below bullish structure, confirming that we're rejecting the higher time frame key level 1.14 and starting to flip back to the higher time frame bearish structure here. So this is a very significant level and a very significant break, showing some weakness in GU. And now we know that overnight we had this terrible GBP data, and that's showing in the GU chart here, and as well the US dollar has been strong. So now if I'm looking over, we know equities are weaker so far. We know the US dollar is stronger. It's actually stronger across the board against all other currencies here. The yen is weak, but the pound is even weaker. right? The pound is weak across the board, even against the euro, the Canadian dollar, and the Australian dollar. So the pound is extremely weak. The US dollar is extremely strong, and that translates here with a significant break of structure. So now looking at even this key level here is significant. If I go back to the 4-hour, two significant levels here. So I'm going to expand my sell zone to include this structure level and this structure level. Now we're retesting these levels right now. So we may end up seeing continuations to the downside here to retest these levels of structure. Now I'm going to identify these candle bodies and these wick rejections here as my potential range to fill to the downside. Okay. Now on the 1-hour time frame, well, on the 1-hour time frame, this is not showing me too much more information, as now I still have this significant sell side zone that's going to be my area of interest. I'm just going to identify this little level right here on 1.105 that we may end up seeing some reactions to. So this could be potentially a first profit target on the way down, and continuations to the higher time frame main target around 1.097. So this is looking really good to me. So far from the London session, we had this significant break. Now we're pulling back here, but I'd like to have a retest of 1.15. If we don't get it, it seems like we're stalling out here. You know, we do have this lower time frame range here. So ideally, like I said, I'd like to get retest of this level. That would be prime for sells. But if we don't get back above this level, as we are creating some rejections here, we may end up getting sells from this level, or breaking past these previous lows here and then selling there, right? So for me, based on the US dollar strength, based on the equities being weaker globally, based on the terrible GBP data and the weak pound overall, even Liz Truss being sacked, you know, the UK government is in shambles. It's not very good for the pound. So fundamentally, we have the pound being weak and the US dollar being strong. So I'm going to be more aggressive in the pound US dollar today, looking for trade ideas like this based on the 1-minute structure and the higher time frame structure as well, just like that. So that's it for today.